Alrighty, well, the Republican machine is going after Tim Walz again. This time, it's for him saying that he had IVF when he had something called IUI, which I believe is actually covered under the description of IVF, and that if you go through IVF, that IUI is just a different part of the treatment, or it's a different treatment, but within the same parameters. So obviously they're really stretching with this one. They already did this with the stolen valor stuff, and they got called on the carpet for that because a guy like JD Vance being the one to be like, "Hey, I think that you're stealing valor. You were in the National Guard," which he never claimed. Like the one time that he said weapons of war that I used, which it that's barely a misspeak because he did use those weapons. When he misspoke, he said, it made it sound like he was in a war zone, which he wasn't, which again, the National Guard should not be going into war zones. Jesse Ventura has covered that. I did a video about Jesse Ventura talking specifically about that subject in the Stolen Valor and how ridiculous it is, and how for any vet to essentially call out another vet's service and put it under scrutiny when there is no stolen valor there is absolutely reprehensible, especially when you have people at Trump supporters at rallies that constantly feign that they were in the military. I just watched one happen recently. If I was better prepared, I would actually have that clip ready, but I just kind of remembered it. So, but at that clip, they asked specifically a man, were you in the Marines? And then they barely pressed him. They're just like, where were you stationed? And he's pulling that, well, I can't say. I don't talk about my time in the military. And then she's just like, well, what did you leave as? Which, again, if you have been watching any of this coverage, you would know the difference between an I-9 and, an like going down I-9 all the way down. So, and that's the thing with Tim Walz. He was an I-9. He wouldn't have seen, a combat zone at the time that he had left his unit. And when his unit was called to Iraq, he was retiring. And also, again, if he is a conscientious objector of the war, he was more than within his rights to just say, "Hey, no, I'm not. I'm not going to Iraq. I don't believe this weapons of mass destruction narrative that you're pushing out," which is kind of disgusting that anybody on the Republican Party right now is trying to go back to that, where they're just like, well, how dare he not, on principle go to a war that was already unpopular and we had absolutely no verification for why we would need to go there, except for just we wanted to. And it's as simple as oil there, we want oil, we take oil. That's what the narrative was when I was in high school. So, anyway, what we're dealing with today, though, is as I said, they're going after his IVF story. So, not only is it like a real jump to just be like, hey, he's just a liar. He's lying about everything. Well, this woman expertly on a panel with Tomi Lahren, she just broke her down where she was just like, well, if you're going to talk about if you're going to be indignant about lying, you might want to take a look at the candidate that you're supporting. So I figured, let's take a look at this article real quick. It's from the Raw Story, which I'm not exactly fond of their website. It is super clickbaity, especially with with anything political. But they actually did some pretty decent coverage on this specific topic. So, Fox News contributor Leslie Marshall challenged conservative pundit Tomi Lahren after she accused Democratic candidates of lying about their records. Yeah, she did try to go more than after just Tim Walz, but she also so during a during a Sunday Fox News panel discussion about Democratic vice presidential nominee Tim Walz, Lahren noted that the candidate and his wife had used entering, you know what? I'm highlighting it so you can see it. Insemination. Because entortine. You know what? Have fun with that one. I don't care. IUI instead of IVF. Again, IVF is just, I mean, come on, it's so much easier to say. His pattern of telling little white lies or little fibs, it does reveal that maybe he does have an issue with being fully transparent, or maybe the truth is different than the actual truth. Instead of reading her reaction, let's go through it.
And we're back with the panel. Tomi Lahren, was it a mistake for Tim Walz to say IVF and then they're called out by the press because he used an entirely different technique?
They definitely are putting this on the lowest quality. Sorry about that. Not my fault.
Called intrauterine insemination.
I'm going to be honest with you, Howie. I don't think most Americans care which method of fertility treatment that he and his wife used to have their children. I think it's nonsensical to talk about it because it doesn't impact the everyday voter or the everyday American. So I'm not going to pile on that. I do think, though, that
it is fun watching her just constantly eat it when she's just passively called out on the crap that she says. It's so funny. Again, Hassan has just masterfully just bodied her.
His pattern of telling little white lies or little fibs, it does reveal that maybe he does have an issue with being fully transparent.
BTC is also a good one.
Or maybe his truth is different than the actual truth. But I think that we should be talking about how he handled COVID protocols. I think we should be talking about how he handled the Summer of Love 2020.
I just noticed that she may have a deviated septum as well.
I think we should be talking about Minnesota being a trans refuge state. I think those things are much more important to talk about. I don't care which way he conceived his family. That's his business, not mine.
Right, but it is important to some people because this alternative method doesn't use discarded embryos, which is part of what makes IVF controversial.
Oh, is it now? I thought that all life was precious to you, and blah, blah, blah. You guys are just so inconsistent.
Leslie Marshall, I don't know what kind of vetting.
Like, it's so weird to watch the Republicans just be like, well, this is going to be the issue. We're making this the issue. And then they always go back to immigration, too.
The campaign did. But whether you like Tim Walz, don't like Tim Walz, I mean, look, he's a hunter, he's a fisher, he was a teacher. He has a pretty liberal record in Minnesota that undercuts any.
They're so worried about the fact that too many Republicans can look at Tim Walz and just be like, yeah, I'd totally go have a beer with that guy.
Move by Kamala Harris to appear more moderate.
Well, actually, most presidential candidates on the left come to the center, and we saw that with the vice president as well. And you're supposed to pick a running mate that complements you, doesn't mimic you, right? You know, kind of opposites attract. I just want to say, Tommy.
Yeah, if Josh Shapiro was the guy, do you know how much they'd be going after his Obama impression? Because it's essentially what it is.
We agreed on almost everything there. As somebody who's had both IUI and IVF, Howie, there is no IUI.
Uh-oh. Tomi Lahren sitting there with her smug little smile just going, well, I can't really speak from experience.
System. It's all an IVF system. They usually for people out there that will go, I just went right.
I love this, like in the corners of her mouth, just how forced she has to do it. She does this all the time. She does it on her own show, too, when she's getting called out.
To IVF. I've had 13 IVF.
Not that I, watch her show religiously or anything. I just do watch enough content that clips her.
IVF cycles to have my daughter. I started with IUI. I had 2 or 3 failed IUIs and then went to IVF. And I understand your point about, what embryo is, more critical with the embryo, in IVF. But I don't think he's wrong in saying, I don't want the government to try to prevent me from being a parent when there are so many ways out there. And I would agree with Tommy that the voters don't care if it's IUI, right. IVF. And then lastly,
well, don't just jump in and say, I didn't.
Yeah, it kind of worked.
Know that about you, sorry. And I'm glad to.
Oh, oopsie.
Have you share that?
Oh my God. Watching Republicans just go, oh crap, this isn't going to track well.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
so I have to say masterful. Though, I try not to laugh out loud, and no offense, because I love Tommy. When anybody on the right, with Donald Trump as their candidate, has any say about anybody else telling a white lie, a big lie, a little lie, a purple lie, whatever lie. Donald Trump tells a lot of lies. So if you're gonna
he does.
do that, on one side of the aisle, please turn inward and look at your own candidate.
All right, let me play a soundbite from.
I'm sorry, just watching her face contort the way that it does every time she gets called on the carpet is so much fun. It is just so much fun. Oh boy. Well, what do you think? Do you think that they honestly have something here? Do you think any American is gonna look? I mean, and I'm talking the the animal that is the undecided voter, because the wondrous undecided voter who exists in America, the one who goes to the polls in November with absolutely no idea who they're going to vote for, because they don't understand. Number one, they do not pay attention to the news cycle, which good for them. Good for them. That must be a happy life. But number two, they also apparently have absolutely no convictions on which they base their moral judgments. I'm just calling it like I see it, man. Like it's absolutely ridiculous, especially in this day and age, to just be like, meh, I still don't know. I mean, Donald Trump might be better on the economy, but he did, There's just no consistency there. And on top of it, it's like what I was about to say about these guys going, oh, IUI, IVF. It's just, number one, it is kind of hilarious, like you saw with that guy there, where he's like, oh, I didn't know. And that's a perfect encapsulation of dudes making these decisions for women like that. So maybe we should have more of that on the air so we can get the juxtaposition of both sides there and just show everybody how fucking ridiculous it is to have a panel of men deciding, nah, Bible say this, therefore we need this. Except realistically, it's a bunch of corporations saying, uh-oh, we don't have enough consumers within the next 20 years. What do they call replacement consumers or some shit? And as dark as that is exactly what it is. Like, that's what it all comes down to. Like, when they're talking about people not having babies and they're talking about, oh, the population, that's real. Because if you look at what we were going through in the late 90s, early 2000s, up till now even, overpopulation was a word that was thrown around a lot. But then you also have the same thing where you drive across the country and you just notice all this open space. Weird. It's like they have this narrative that we're elbow to elbow locked in, and it's getting tighter and tighter with each brown person that crosses that border. Oh no, we're losing our white sensibilities, folks. Jeez, it is. It's just so sad and transparent, the fact that we're still doing this, and there's enough people within the media that they just go, yeah. This makes sense. We're gonna call out again. We're gonna call out Tim Walz on these lies, but allow Donald Trump to lie like it's breathing, and never fact check him. Never. And then they go. It's kind of funny. They'll even go on like some panels, and then they'll just be like, "Oh, he really needs to tone it down with the rhetoric and what he's saying. It's not resonating. He needs to focus on the economy and immigration." Again, the only two things that they have this. Even if this wasn't Donald Trump, that's the only thing that they're like, "Yeah, that's all Americans really care about." No, I mean, well, his side cares about trolling the libs. And again, you got some left wingers that are just like, I kind of want lower rent. Healthcare costs should definitely be lower, if not free. It'd be nice to not be commodified and think that every time I have a health issue that, oh, no, this is going to cost me however much. I mean, I just had this happen to me, and then I just got a bill because it's like, oh, I thought my insurance covered this. Well, tough shit. So, well, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, comment. Subscriptions. We're getting there. We're pushing to 1,000. So please subscribe if you like my content. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.